Behind the most celebrated spiritual journey in history lies another story, one almost buried beneath centuries of silence. Imagine this, a young woman in ancient India living what seems like the perfect dream. A glittering palace, every luxury at her fingertips, a husband who is a prince, and a newborn son cradled in silks. To the world, she has everything. And then, one morning, it all collapses. She wakes up, reaches across the bed, empty. The prince is gone. Not to war, not on duty, simply vanished. The baby cries, servants whisper in confusion, and she is left with the unthinkable question, did he abandon her? Or worse, did he abandon them? Years roll by. When he finally returns, he's no longer Siddhartha, the husband she once knew. He's the Buddha, the awakened one, revered by millions. And she is remembered only as the wife he left behind. But here's the truth. Yasodhara was not a background character. She turned heartbreak into strength, and her journey reshaped the very idea of enlightenment. Today, we tell her story.
Let's step back. Ancient India, around 500 BC. Yasodhara came from the same Shakya clan as Siddhartha. She wasn't just beautiful, she was brilliant, educated, and outspoken. When the time came to choose a husband, it wasn't simply Siddhartha winning her as a prize. It was Yasodhara choosing him after he proved himself in contests of skill, strength, and knowledge. Together they lived in unimaginable splendor. Palaces for every season, music, gardens, endless festivities. Soon their son Rahula was born, and to everyone watching this was the fairy tale ending. But Yasodhara noticed the change. His eyes lingered too long on suffering. His questions cut deeper. Why does pain exist? Why does joy fade? She sensed he was drifting, but not even she could predict what was about to happen. Then came that fateful night. Ancient texts describe how Siddhartha looked upon his sleeping wife and child for the last time. Some say he nearly woke her, others that he whispered a silent farewell. In the end, he slipped away into the dark with his horse and charioteer, never saying a word. At dawn, Yasodhara reached for him. Nothing. Panic spread through the palace. The truth crashed in. He hadn't been stolen away. He had walked away. Now think about this. In her time, when a husband left, the wife often bore the shame. She was seen as the failure. So imagine Yasodhara's position. A single mother, a humiliated queen, a woman abandoned without warning. Anguish, fury, humiliation, yet she refused to collapse. Instead, she raised Rahula, faced the whispers of the court, and carried herself with quiet dignity. Years blurred. 3, 5, 10. No word, no sign. Then came rumors. A wandering teacher near Bodh Gaya, a man who spoke with piercing clarity about suffering and freedom. At first, she dismissed it. India was full of wandering ascetics. But deep inside, she knew it was him. And then the day arrived. Siddhartha, now the Buddha, returned to his home. The city prepared a royal welcome. Crowds gathered, musicians played, family rushed to greet him. But Yasodhara did not join the procession. She stayed in her chamber. If he wished to see her, he would have to come to her. He did, and when he entered, it was no longer the man she remembered. His presence was steady, his eyes vast with wisdom. Between them stood years of silence, grief, and transformation. He had renounced the world to reach enlightenment. She had endured the world and found her own strength. And then came Yasodhara's boldest move. She didn't simply want reunion, she wanted liberation. She declared her wish to join the Sangha, the community of those seeking truth. At first, Buddha resisted. At that time, women were not admitted. But Yasodhara did not back down. Together with Mahapajapati Gautami, Buddha's foster mother and other noble women, she shaved her head, donned the robe, and walked barefoot to his monastery. It was a revolution, women demanding equality, not in politics, but in spiritual life, 2,500 years ago. After repeated petitions and thanks to the intercession of Buddha's disciple Ananda, the request was granted. The order of Nuns was born, and Yasodhara was among the first.
She didn't just follow in Buddha's shadow, she became a teacher in her own right. The Therigatha, a collection of poems by early Buddhist nuns, preserves her voice. In one verse, she speaks of casting away her jewels, her silks, her pride. She had once been the ideal wife, the perfect queen, but now she sought freedom from all roles. Tradition tells us Yasodhara reached the highest goal, enlightenment itself. Like the Buddha, she became an arhat, freed from the cycle of birth and death. And yet, her name rarely makes it into the headlines of history. Why? Because the stories were recorded by men, in times when women's voices were pushed aside. Yasodhara's triumph was softened, minimized, almost erased. She was remembered as the wife who got left, not the woman who awakened. But her real story sends a different message. She showed that enlightenment isn't only about leaving, it can also be about staying. She didn't abandon her child or her responsibilities. She turned pain into wisdom, disgrace into courage, motherhood into compassion. That is Yasodhara's legacy. Not just the wife of the Buddha, not just a supporting character, but a pioneer who proved that awakening belongs to everyone, woman or man, abandoned or adored, privileged or broken. So when you think of the Buddha's story, remember there was another path unfolding at the same time, a path of resilience, defiance, and transformation, Yasodhara's path. And maybe that's the real lesson for us today. You don't have to wait for anyone to give you permission to grow. You don't need a grand departure to change your life. Sometimes the deepest strength is born when you're left behind. What struck you in Yasodhara's story? Which moment hit hardest? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if this changed the way you see Buddhism, pass it along to someone who needs a reminder that pain can become power. Stay curious, keep seeking, and remember, your journey is still being written.